Welcome to Old Salem, a unique historic district in Winston-Salem. Originally established by a group of European settlers known as Moravians, today the historic district operates as a museum where visitors exploring centuries-old buildings get a chance to witness traditional crafts such as pottery, woodworking, and blacksmithing. At Old Salem, there's another Moravian tradition on display, Moravian Cookies, thin cookies often made around Christmas time. It's a tradition passed down from one generation to the next. Eva Haynes learned to make the cookies from her mother and turned it into a business. Welcome to Mrs. Haynes' Moravian Cookies.
We had a small dairy farm. Mother made cookies to supplement the farm income. She asked me to help, and so I helped. And so that's how I got in the business.
She paid close attention and learned from her mother.
I really loved to bake the cookies. I really did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned quickly how to handle the dough. I'm a time and motion expert.
Once in business, Mrs. Haynes got very efficient.
Whenever I was making nothing but sugar cookies, I could make 100 pounds a day.
Her husband Travis says her business plan was pretty simple.
She said, "You make the dough, I'll make the cookies." And said, "You sell the cookies." Now, I always add this last part. She says that's not true. She always said, "Give me the dough."
Mrs. Haynes started as a home-based business, selling cookies simply by word of mouth. But that all started to change in the 1960s.
We were invited to the Christmas show in Charlotte and to the State Fair in Raleigh in the Village of Yesteryear. I'd show how the cookies were made there, and we'd give out samples. And that's how the mail order business got started. Then we'd hire, about every other year, we'd have to hire somebody extra because we needed more cookies.
The couple's efforts paid off over the decades, and today another generation is carrying on the family tradition. Meet Jedediah Templin.
Mrs. Haynes is my grandmother, so that would make me the third, but my great-grandmother developed a sugar cookie recipe, so that would make me the fourth. I'm also a ninth-generation Moravian in the area.
But one thing hasn't changed.
It's still done by hand. You can determine how much flour you need to add to make it roll good and cut cookies out good. That's the secret of it.
We do it all. Everything, arrives here as flour, sugar, and molasses, and then we do the production and all the customer service and then taking the orders, and it's very much a hands-on business. It's not just made by hand.
Jedediah says the company employs about 40 people year-round, but demand for their cookies is high around Christmas.
Come Christmas season, I have to bring in another 20 people. Our ginger cookies we're able to make year-round. We have to make cookies year-round in order to have enough to sell at Christmas. And so the ginger cookies, there are no eggs, no milk in the recipe, and they have a very long shelf life.
The staff at Mrs. Haynes produces a staggering amount of cookies.
Every year, we're able to make over 100,000 pounds of cookies, all by hand. It takes a lot of work, a lot of people, about 20 people currently rolling and cutting cookies year-round. About half of it gets turned into ginger cookies. That's our biggest seller, most popular. That's the flavor that you think of when you think of a Christmas cookie. We'll do about 30,000 pounds of sugar cookies and about an even split for the rest of the flavors.
The process all starts in the mixing room.
The dough here is made in fairly large batches, 500 pounds or 700 pounds at a time, about 3 times a week. It's then chilled and brought into our production area where it's taken about 20 pounds at a time to a table to then hand roll and hand cut. Goes through the oven in the same room into our bakers who then take it off the pans by hand, pack it into bags by hand, or to be stored for packing later into our red tins, our gift tins, also by hand.
The most physical job at Mrs. Haynes goes to their team of skilled rollers.
The rolling process itself, yes, is a type of physical training. We actually just had somebody start this week who, their second day here, they mentioned, "I'm a little sore." Each of the rollers has their own unique cookie cutter that we call a miniature. And that's their signature for each pan of cookies that they make. And so they'll make a pan of hearts and then one signature cookie of a crown or a teddy bear, something like that. So that way, the pan goes through the oven, and to the bakers, and the bakers are taking them off the pans, and if they notice there's something wrong with these cookies, too thick, too thin, too much flour, too little flour, I know who made this pan of cookies because it's this miniature on the pan. It's an art, but it can be learned.
At one time, they explored bringing in cookie cutting machines.
I frankly did not want to go through the process of having to adjust how much flour to use and how to do this. I was getting rather up in age, and so we just kept on making them by hand and hiring a few more people.
Locally, you can stop by the factory to buy your cookies, but most people order online.
We ship them in 7-ounce tubes or 14-ounce or 28-ounce tins. The tins themselves are hand-packed, little stacks of cookies wrapped in either wax paper or a napkin. We ship all over to all 50 states, and every year I'll have about 50 to 100 packages go internationally. One of our favorite customers is actually Quincy Jones, who sends cookies Valentine's Day to lots of folks. And after the difficulty of 2008, one of the things that really got us back working was Oprah Winfrey mentioned us in her O magazine, saying, would it be Christmas if my pal Quincy Jones didn't send me Mrs. Haynes' cookies? And we're like, oh, well, that's very nice, thank you.
We asked Mrs. Haynes if she ever imagined that a simple family cookie recipe would bring such success.
Not in my wildest dreams, no. No, never, ever imagined. My husband and I, we worked hard, and I can just imagine what my mother would say. The Lord has blessed me all these years. I mean, He has.
We could never imagine this would turn into what it has turned into. But we've just been blessed all over our life. Even with the business here, we've had so much good help and good support. The only thing we've had here better than the cookies is those people in there making the cookies.
In the end, for the Haynes, it all comes back to family.
Well, it makes me feel good that it's still going on and still handled well. So heading it down to my next generation and then the next generation. And doing a fantastic job.
Being able to work with my wife as a partner the same way my grandparents were partners, be building together and adding on to a legacy of a family business. This business now going into the third and hopefully the fourth generation, it just means that I'm a caretaker of it. It's humbling, but it's also inspiring to have that kind of responsibility, to be a caretaker of that kind of history and that kind of tradition.
For Carolina Impact, I'm Jason Terzis reporting.
We hope you enjoyed this story. If you don't want to miss any great stories about the Charlotte region, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.